As 2025 comes to an end, we enter the holidays. We're at the end of the first year of Trump's second term. I have a lot of questions, and I've always had these questions, but I feel like I have them now more than ever. Who are these politicians beholden to? Why do they become subservient? It doesn't matter what side, left or right. Obama ran on change. He didn't change anything. He ended up funding all the banks that were affiliated with the mortgage meltdown and Citibank and so forth, and put us into even more debt. Donald Trump doesn't seem to be draining the swamp by any means. He, more than anything, seems to be a part of it. So, with all these questions, I think we need to go back into history and talk about the Federal Reserve and central banks and where that came from. So back in the 1600s, goldsmith, you'd go and deposit your gold with the goldsmith, and they would hold it for you. They had security and so forth, kind of like a bank, but they were a goldsmith. Well, they realized that nobody was ever coming to retrieve their gold, or if they did, they got a small portion of it. So they had a big gold reserve. So they started issuing receipts so that people weren't walking around town and get mugged for their gold. They had a ledger and receipts. Then they realized that they can loan money out because they're backed by this gold, and that's where fractional reserve currency or fractional reserve banking came from. Well, in 1694, the British government was broke due to a bunch of wars. So they decided to privatize the Bank of England and create the Bank of England. And that created a central bank where they would loan their own money to the British government, and the government would pay back the Bank of England with interest. After the Bank of England was created, you had the creation of the Rothschild dynasty with Mayer de Rothschild. And he was the founding father of finance, or whatever they call him. Anyways, during this time, you also had the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars. Mayer Rothschild had his 5 sons go out to different countries in Europe and create their banking dynasty while funding Napoleon, funding the British for more wars. Well, the Battle of Waterloo happened and Napoleon lost the war, but the Rothschilds had a faster courier system than any government. So they could run money back and forth, transfer, and they can also go and sell and buy bonds faster than anybody's aware of anything. So Napoleon lost the war at Waterloo. Nathan Rothschild goes to the stock exchange to sell all of his British bonds, even though Napoleon lost against the Brits. So everybody saw this happening, so everybody unloaded their British bonds, and then the Rothschild bought all those bonds, and the market skyrocketed because the Brits won the war. So I bring that up because the boom and bust cycles that we get in with this central bank system started from this. Fast forward to America in the late 1700s, the Brits tried to push this banking system onto the colonialists. The colonialists had their colonial script, and they didn't want anything to do with the Bank of England's system. Well, they forced it upon the colonialists, and then had the tea tax, and all these things ramped up, caused the American Revolution. Most presidents did not want a central bank system in the founding fathers and so forth. Thomas Jefferson was extremely opposed against a privatized banking system. So you had Andrew Jackson, who ran on no banks, won in a landslide. And he was the first American president. to have an attempt on his life, attempted assassination. Fast forward to Lincoln. He was adamantly opposed to a privatized banking system. We know what happened to him. And then fast forward to a secret meeting off the coast of South Carolina or Georgia on Jekyll Island. You had J.P. Morgan and all these associates of these moguls and so forth created the Federal Reserve, and then they needed somebody to enact it. 1912, Woodrow Wilson was elected president and goes down as the worst president of American history. But Roosevelt also was running against him, and there was an attempted assassination on his life. So I think he was against the privatized banking system as well. Woodrow Wilson caught the drift, and now we have a Federal Reserve privatized banking system. And ever since then, we've had boom and bust cycles caused by these, whether you call it cabal of elites that are running the world, funding both sides of wars, non-stop wars, and so forth. I'm going to get into more details of all of that, world wars and so forth. There's your history of fractional reserve banking and central banking, the central banking system.